long before the land was called Kenya. Before boundaries were drawn on maps, there lived a people who moved with the rhythm of the earth. They came from the great forests of the Congo, walking for generations, until they reached the waters of Mumbo, the great lake we now call Victoria. And there, they began to grow. They settled along a river they named Olukose, the river you now know as Yala. At their head stood a man of strength and vision, Anyolo. Under him, the people grew. They tilled the land. They planted seeds. They raised families. But growth often attracts conflict. And when other communities came, they did not always come in peace. The battles were fierce. Spears met shields. Voices rose into the sky. And when victory came, the people would sing, "Bano ihubarambire." We have defeated them. Their enemies listened. And from those words, they gave them a name. Marama.
From Anyolo came many sons. Bukachi, Amukhula,
Alakonaya, Mukawe, each branch growing, each family spreading across the land. But among them, two names would shape history: Amukhula and Wesamba. They were brothers, raised under the same sky, fed from the same land. But even in the strongest families, storms can form. One morning, Amukhula went to his brother's home. He did not know that Wesamba had traveled the night before. But fate is a cruel storyteller. At that very moment, Wesamba returned. And what he saw changed everything. There are things a man can forgive, and there are things he cannot. In their world, to be with your brother's wife, while he still lives, was Omusi Rao, a curse, an abomination. The elders were called. Voices rose. Judgment loomed. Amukhula tried to speak, to explain. But some wounds refused to listen. Wesamba stood before the people, his voice heavy with anger.
From this day, we are no longer one. No brotherhood, no shared blood. Let our children marry across the divide. Let there be separation.
And so it was spoken. And so it began. For this pronouncement to be sealed, a ritual had to be performed. The people gathered at the village square, wrapped in silence. This was no ordinary moment. This was history, being written. Wesamba stepped forward first. A pot in his hands, filled with water, and seeds of life. At the sound of the horn, he struck it. The pot shattered. The water spilled, but it did not go far. Then came Amukhula, calm, steady. But his pot was different. Inside it was milk mixed with seeds. Millet, sesame, ground nuts, cowpeas, sorghum. When he struck the pot, something changed. The milk flowed, carrying the seeds, far beyond the slope, until they reached River Firatsi. The people saw it, and they understood. This was no accident. It was a sign that Amukhula's people would spread far and wide. And from that day, they became known as Abamukhula. And even today, their story is not forgotten. It lives in song, a reminder of where they came from. Thereafter Wesamba moved far east of the community, never to be associated with Abamukhula. So this two communities marry each other to date. Abamukhula are proud people calling their daughters Namukhula, and their sons Abamukhula. The daughters and sons born of Namukhula can never marry each other, it's an abomination. So we have a generation of proud people who stand tall in society. And though they separated, their story remained tied forever. Because sometimes, a people are not born from peace, but from pain, from division, from a moment that changes everything. And yet, they rise. The end.